You know how sometimes you just get a feeling, a deep, gut-twisting certainty that you've made a terrible mistake. Mine hit me about 50 miles after I took that unmarked turnoff, the one the GPS conveniently forgot to mention. The sun was starting to bleed out across the horizon, painting everything in those long, mournful shadows, and my phone had died about an hour back. Classic, right? I was just trying to make good time, escape the city, escape, well, everything. I killed the engine. The sudden silence was deafening, broken only by the faint, almost imperceptible crackle from the direction of the chair. It wasn't a sound of consumption, not like a log in a fireplace. It was different, sharper, almost like tiny bones snapping. If that makes any sense, it probably doesn't. My hand was hovering over the door handle, a voice in my head screaming, "Drive, you idiot, drive." But my eyes were glued to that impossible sight. I finally pushed the car door open, the creak echoing unnaturally loud in the stillness. Stepping out onto the dry, crackling earth felt like crossing a threshold. The air here was different, heavier. And the smell, it wasn't just wood smoke. There was something else mixed in, something metallic and faintly sweet, almost like burnt sugar, but with an underlying note of decay that turned my stomach. I took a few tentative steps towards the field, my boots crunching on gravel and dried weeds. I forced myself to walk closer, my heart thumping a nervous rhythm against my ribs. The closer I got, the more details resolved themselves, and none of them were comforting. The wood of the chair, despite the constant flames, wasn't blackening beyond a certain point. It was as if it were caught in a perpetual state of near combustion, charred but eternally resilient. The carvings were clearer now, and they were horrifying. My gaze drifted beyond the chair, further into the field, and that's when I saw the house, or what was left of it. It was set back maybe 100 yards from the chair, almost swallowed by overgrown trees and creeping vines, barely visible in the fading light. It was a skeleton, really. A dilapidated two-story farmhouse, its windows like vacant eyes staring out from a decaying face. Most of the roof had caved in, and the porch sagged precariously. The walk to the farmhouse was tense. Every rustle in the undergrowth, every snap of a twig under my boots sounded like a gunshot in the oppressive quiet. The path was barely there, more of a suggestion than a trail, and thorny bushes snagged at my jeans like grasping hands. The smell from the chair seemed to follow me, or perhaps the entire area was permeated with it, that strange, sweet, metallic burnt odor. As I got closer, the farmhouse loomed larger, more decrepit, more sorrowful. I fumbled for my phone, remembering with a jolt of frustration that it was dead. Of course it was. Perfect. My only source of light was the faint moonlight filtering through the skeletal trees, and it barely penetrated the oppressive darkness of the house's interior. I took a deep breath, trying to calm the frantic bird fluttering in my chest, and stepped inside. The floorboards creaked ominously beneath my feet, a chorus of groans and sighs as if the house itself was protesting my intrusion. My heart hammered against my ribs, a scorch mark, here, inside the house. Was this where the chair used to be? Did someone move it outside, or was there more than one? The thought was deeply unsettling. I backed away from the mark slowly, scanning the room, my senses on high alert. The silence in the house was different now. It felt less empty and more observant, like I was being watched by unseen eyes. I moved on, deeper into the house, drawn by a morbid fascination I couldn't deny. Each room was a tableau of decay and forgotten lives. A kitchen with rusted pots still hanging on hooks, a dining room with a collapsed table, as if a meal had been violently interrupted long ago. Upstairs, the floorboards were even more treacherous, groaning and threatening to give way with every step. I found a bedroom, the wallpaper peeling in damp strips. I dropped the drawings as if they'd burned my fingers. The implications were sickening. This wasn't just some random, weird phenomenon. This was tied to a tragedy, a horrible, fiery tragedy involving a child. The image of that stick figure in the burning chair seared itself into my mind. Was the chair in the field a memorial, a curse, or something far more sinister? I backed out of the bedroom, a cold sweat breaking out on my forehead. Against every instinct for self-preservation, I found myself inching back towards the living room. My legs felt like lead, but that terrible curiosity, that need to know, was still there, overriding my fear. The creaking continued, steady and unnervingly calm. Creak, pause, creak, pause. As I reached the doorway, peering in, the moonlight illuminated the room just enough for me to see. There was nothing there, nothing physically causing the sound. The overturned furniture was still. I backed out of the living room slowly, never taking my eyes off the spot where the creaking had originated. I had to get out of this house. Now, the curiosity had curdled into a primal fear. This place wasn't just haunted, it felt active, aware. As I retreated through the hallway towards the front exit, I noticed something I hadn't seen on my way in. On the wall beside where the grandfather clock lay shattered, there was a series of faded marks, like someone had been keeping score. I stumbled back across the overgrown field, my legs shaky, my mind racing. The image of the child's drawing, the stick figure engulfed in flames, kept flashing in my head. The scorch mark in the living room, the invisible rocking, the word always. It was all swirling together into a horrifying tapestry of pain and endless repetition. As I approached the burning chair again, it seemed different, or maybe I was different. And then the flames shifted. It wasn't a flicker from a breeze, there was no breeze. The fire on the backrest, usually a steady, even burn, seemed to coalesce, to draw inwards for a fraction of a second before flaring up, and in that flare I saw an image, or I thought I did. It was there for only a heartbeat, an impression burned onto my retinas more than a clear picture. A face. I turned to flee. I didn't care about my car, my belongings, anything. I just needed to get away from that chair, from that house, from this whole accursed place. But as I took my first stumbling step, a sound froze me in my tracks. It wasn't the crackling of the fire, not the creaking from the house. It was a whisper, so faint I almost thought I'd imagined it. It seemed to come from all around me and from nowhere at all. "Don't go." "What do you want?" I finally whispered, the words barely audible even to myself. The silence pressed in, and then another whisper, softer this time, closer. "Help me." My heart twisted. A child, trapped, asking for help. But how? How could I possibly help something like this? I wasn't a priest, not a psychic, just a guy on a road trip trying to outrun his own damn ghosts. "How can I help you?" I asked, my voice a little stronger, a little more desperate. The connection hit me like a physical blow, knocking the air from my lungs. This place, this chair, it wasn't random. It wasn't a curse I'd stumbled upon by chance. It was, for me, it had been waiting for me. The child's voice whispered again, no longer asking for help, but stating a fact, cold and clear. "You understand?" I did. Oh God, I did. This place, this entity, it wasn't just about a tragedy that happened here long ago. It was a beacon. I don't know how long I knelt there, paralyzed by the enormity of it all. The night deepened, the stars like cold, distant eyes in the black sky. The chair burned on, its flames a constant, unwavering presence. Slowly, painstakingly, I got to my feet. My legs were trembling so violently I could barely stand. My mind was a chaotic whirl of guilt, fear, and a dawning, terrible understanding. I looked at the chair, really looked at it, not as a curiosity, but as a destination, my destination. I was only a foot away now. The heat was searing, blistering my skin, yet I barely registered the pain. My gaze was fixed on the seat of the chair, on the heart of the fire. It was like looking into the sun, a swirling vortex of orange, yellow, and an almost white-hot core. The intricate carvings seemed to shift and writhe in the intense, flickering light, their silent screams echoing the turmoil in my own soul. I could feel it pulling at me, not just physically, but spiritually, like a powerful undertow. I don't remember sitting down. I don't remember the fire consuming me, but I remember the shift. One moment I was Mark, the man full of regret standing before the burning chair. The next, I was the chair or part of it. I could feel the ancient wood, perpetually charred, never consumed. I could feel the flames not as pain, but as an extension of myself. My awareness expanded. I felt the child, still there, a whisper of sorrow within the fire, no longer asking for help, but simply. You know how it is on those long road trips, right? Miles and miles of nothing, just asphalt and sky, and then suddenly you're so tired you'd sleep on a pile of rocks if it meant closing your eyes for 5 minutes. That was me and Ben. We'd been driving for, I don't know, 14 hours straight, trying to make it to the coast by morning, and the coffee just wasn't cutting it anymore. Then, like some kind of bad omen flickering in the distance, we saw it. The vacancy sign of the Stardust Motel. So we get to room 12, and it's exactly what you'd expect. Threadbare carpet, a TV that probably only got 3 channels of static, and that distinct smell of old motel room, a lovely cocktail of industrial cleaner, dampness, and generations of other people's fleeting despair. But then there was room 14, right next door. And man, even from the hallway it felt different. The door was a darker shade of brown than the others, almost black, like it had absorbed all the light around it. Our room, number 12, was a testament to neglect. The wallpaper, a faded floral pattern, was peeling at the corners, revealing patches of darker, stained wall beneath. The bed sagged in the middle, and the air was thick with the smell of dust and something vaguely chemical, probably the cheap disinfectant they used. Ben crashed almost immediately, his snores soon filling the small space. But I couldn't sleep. My mind kept drifting back to room 14, to the old man's chilling words. It must have been around 3 in the morning when the sound started. At first, I thought I was dreaming. A faint scratching like fingernails on wood coming from the other side of the wall from room 14. I sat bolt upright in bed, my heart hammering against my ribs. The room was pitch black save for the sickly orange glow of the parking lot lights filtering through the threadbare curtains. Ben was still snoring, oblivious. I held my breath, listening. Silence. The next morning, after a restless night filled with those unsettling sounds, the first thing I did, once Ben finally dragged himself out of bed, was try to get a look at room 14 in the daylight. Ben thought I was nuts. Dude, just leave it. It's probably some crackhead's old den or full of asbestos. Let's just get breakfast and hit the road. But I couldn't. That warning from the clerk, the noises, it was like an itch I couldn't scratch. Ben emerged from our room, toweling his hair, looking marginally more human. "Find any ghosts, Scooby," he quipped, but his usual sarcastic edge was missing. He'd heard the noises too, and even he couldn't just brush them off entirely. I told him about the weird darkness under the door and the cold draft. He tried to rationalize it. Old building, man, bad insulation, probably just leads to a creepy old storage space. But I could see the doubt in his eyes. As the day wore on, something else started to become noticeable, a smell. At first it was faint, barely perceptible, and I thought maybe it was just the general miasma of the motel, old food, dampness, neglect. But this was different. It was seeping from under the door of room 14, stronger now than the faint metallic tang I'd noticed earlier. It was sweet, cloyingly sweet, like overripe fruit left to rot in the sun. That night's sleep was impossible. The sounds from room 14 were back, louder now, more insistent. The scratching was frenetic, desperate. The whispers had coalesced into what sounded like faint, mournful crying, a child's sorrowful wail that was just on the edge of intelligibility. And the smell, oh God, the smell was awful. It filled our room, thick and cloying, a nauseating perfume of decay and something unnervingly sweet. Eventually, exhaustion must have claimed me because I drifted into a nightmare. After that nightmare, there was no more talk of waiting. We had to leave. Now, as soon as the first gray light of dawn seeped through the grimy curtains, we threw our stuff into our bags, not even bothering to fold anything. The air in room 12 felt toxic, saturated with the smell from next door and the lingering horror of my dream. We didn't speak, just moved with a grim, shared urgency. "Keys," Ben muttered, already heading for the door. "Okay, new plan, find the owner." He had to have a phone, right, or jumper cables, or maybe just an explanation for why his motel seemed to be actively trying to imprison us. We headed back to the office, the one that doubled as the diner. The open sign was still flipped, but the place looked different, emptier. The door was unlocked, creaking inward as I pushed it. "Hello," I called out, my voice echoing slightly in the stillness. "Anyone here?" Silence. The counter was deserted. With the owner gone, or perhaps having never truly been there, and our car and phones useless, a real sense of desperation started to set in. We were well off the main highway, down a less traveled side road. We hadn't seen another car pass since we arrived. We were effectively cut off, isolated. Our meager supply of road trip snacks was dwindling fast, a few crushed bags of chips, a half-eaten chocolate bar. It was during one of Ben's frantic pacings that he found it. He kicked at a loose floorboard near the wall shared with room 14, more out of frustration than anything else. There was a dull thud and the board shifted slightly. "What the?" he mumbled, kneeling down. I watched, listless at first, then with growing curiosity as he pried at it with his fingers. The wood splintered, and he managed to pull the short board free. The discovery of the key seemed to shatter something in Ben. He'd been teetering on the edge, and this just pushed him over. He became increasingly withdrawn, almost catatonic at times. He'd sit on his bed for hours, just staring at the shared wall with room 14, his eyes unfocused, occasionally muttering things I couldn't understand. "They're listening," he'd whisper, his voice raspy. "Always listening." He stopped eating the little food we had left, refused to drink. I couldn't take it anymore. Watching Ben fade, listening to those desperate, pleading whispers from room 14, feeling the oppressive weight of this motel bearing down on us. Something had to give. We were trapped, starving, and slowly losing our minds. The key lay on the bedside table, a constant, silent dare. "Ben," I said, my voice firmer than I felt. "We have to do something. We can't just sit here and rot." He didn't respond, just continued his vacant stare at the wall. Stepping out into the hallway felt like stepping into another world, even though it was just a few feet from our room. The air here was colder, and the sickly sweet metallic smell from room 14 was almost overpowering. Ben hadn't followed me. I could hear his faint, despairing whimpers from back in room 12. I stood before the dark, featureless door of room 14. It seemed to loom larger than before, more malevolent. Pushing the door to room 14 further open took all my courage. It moved with a protesting groan, revealing the interior. The darkness inside was absolute, like stepping into a void. My phone, miraculously still with a sliver of battery, became my only weapon against it. I fumbled for the flashlight app, my fingers slick with sweat. The weak beam cut a narrow swathe through the oppressive blackness, and what it revealed made my blood run cold. The room was bare, utterly, starkly empty. I took a hesitant step into room 14, the beam of my phone flashlight shaking in my hand. The door creaked shut behind me with a soft, final click, plunging me into near total darkness save for my little light. My breath hitched. The oppressive atmosphere was suffocating. I swept the light around again, focusing on the area around the child's chair. That's when I saw them. Etched into the concrete floor surrounding the chair in a wide, irregular circle were markings. Hundreds of them, tally marks. My gaze kept being drawn to the back wall, the one the small chair faced. It was just stone like the others, dark and damp. But as I stared, my flashlight beam quivering, I noticed something. Behind the chair, almost perfectly centered with it and low to the ground, was a subtle irregularity in the stonework. A faint outline, almost invisible in the dim, dancing light. I crept closer, my heart pounding. Yes, there was definitely something there. It was a door. With my phone light flickering, threatening to die any second, I pushed the small wooden door. It swung inward silently, without a creak, into that deeper darkness. I leaned forward, angling my failing light into the opening. My breath caught in my throat. It wasn't another room. It wasn't a tunnel. It was a mirror. Or rather, it was like looking through a mirror. I was seeing our motel room, room 12. I screamed, scrambling backwards in the pitch blackness, away from that horrifying vision in the small doorway. I slammed the tiny wooden door shut with a blind, desperate shove. The sound echoed in the crushing dark. I spun around, intending to flee room 14 to get back to the hallway to find Ben if he was even still, real. But when I turned, my hands outstretched, groping blindly, they didn't find the door to the hallway. They hit a solid wall, cold, rough stone. We'd been driving for what felt like an eternity, man, just me and Dave, chasing some vague idea of a real American road trip. The kind where you ditch the interstates and see the country. Well, we were seeing it all right. Mostly just endless stretches of cracked asphalt cutting through dark, silent forests. The sky a bruised purple as night really started to settle in. Then, bam, out of nowhere, headlights pick up this shape hunched by the side of the road. "Dude, score," Dave whispered, his voice a little too loud in the sudden stillness as he lifted the laptop. It was heavier than it looked. He brushed off some of the grime, his eyes gleaming with that reckless curiosity I both admired and dreaded. Probably busted, but who knows? Could have some old games on it or, I don't know, secrets. I just shook my head, this profound sense of unease washing over me. Secrets. Well, that's direct, Dave finally managed, a nervous chuckle escaping him. He poked at the trackpad, but there was no mouse pointer, just that insistent, blinking cursor beneath enter password. Think it's case sensitive, he mused, already typing. He tried the obvious ones. Password, 123,456. Admin. Each time he hit enter, the screen just blinked once dismissively, the white letters unwavering. After about 20 minutes of fruitless guessing, even Dave's enthusiasm started to wane. He snapped the laptop shut with a frustrated sigh. All right, fine, you win, it's creepy, he admitted, placing it on the floor by his feet. We'll ditch it at the next town, okay? No big deal. But it already felt like a big deal. The silence in the car was heavy, charged. Finally, a flickering neon sign emerged from the oppressive fog like a dying star in a black ocean. Motel, it buzzed, a few letters dark, the O flickering erratically. It looked like something straight out of a nightmare, but at that point, anywhere with four walls and a lock felt like a sanctuary. Civilization, sort of, Dave mumbled, his voice flat. Let's just get a room. I need to not be in this car anymore. I couldn't have agreed more. The place was beyond rundown. The room was as grim as the outside suggested. Threadbare carpet, a stained bedspread that looked like it had witnessed unspeakable horrors, and a single, fly-specked window that offered a lovely view of a brick wall and more swirling fog. The air was stale, and there was a faint, unidentifiable smell that made my nose wrinkle. Dave tossed his bag on one of the beds and immediately set the laptop on the rickety particle board desk. Sleep was difficult. That's an understatement. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that damn password prompt, the cursor blinking like a malevolent eye in the darkness of my mind. The motel bed was lumpy. The pillow smelled vaguely of someone else's despair, and the silence outside, broken only by the occasional creak of the old building settling, was more terrifying than any noise. Morning, if you could call it that. The fog hadn't lifted. If anything, it was thicker, a solid gray wall outside the grimy window pressing in, making the already depressing room feel like a tomb. It was the kind of fog that swallows sound, that makes you feel like you're the only person left in the world. We packed our meager bags in near silence, the shared experience of the previous night and my clearly rattled state hanging heavy between us. Dave didn't even try to crack a joke. Okay, don't panic, Dave said, though his voice was tight, betraying his own fear. Maybe it's just the battery. Maybe that creepy old clerk has jumper cables or knows a mechanic. His optimism felt forced, paper-thin against the oppressive weight of the fog and our situation. The motel office looked even more desolate in the gray, featureless light of day. The motel sign was completely off now, giving it a truly abandoned look. With no help forthcoming from the charming motel clerk, we were left with two options: wait for the fog to magically lift and our car to magically fix itself, or try to find help in the town he'd alluded to, if you could even call it a town. We walked. The fog was a constant companion, a cold, wet blanket that limited visibility to maybe 20 feet. The road out of the motel complex quickly dissolved into a narrow, cracked lane overgrown with weeds. We'd been walking for what felt like hours, though the fog distorted any real sense of time. Every derelict house looked the same, every twisted tree a repeat of the last. Dave had stopped talking, his focus entirely on the laptop he cradled like a sick child. He'd open it, stare at the enter password screen, close it, then repeat the process a few minutes later. It was maddening. I was about to suggest turning back, though back to what I wasn't sure, when he suddenly stopped dead. Mark. That image on the laptop screen shattered any lingering hope that this was just a series of unfortunate coincidences. This was something else, something active, malevolent, and aware of us. We stumbled back towards the motel. The terrifying vision of that distorted face burned into my retinas. The fog seemed to mock us, its tendrils reaching out like ghostly fingers. Even Dave was silent now, the laptop held away from his body as if it were radioactive. Ready to be welcome, I echoed, my voice barely a whisper. The clerk's words sent a fresh wave of ice through my veins. Welcomed by what? But he just turned back to his sweeping, a dismissive gesture that clearly indicated the conversation was over. I stumbled out of the office, my mind reeling. A token, a password to prove you belong to it, whatever it was. I relayed the horrifying conversation to Dave. He listened, his face growing paler with each word. The abandoned car was even more unsettling in the gray, foggy daylight. It felt violated, exposed. We searched it frantically, tearing through the glove compartment under the seats in the trunk, which Dave managed to pry open with a tire iron we found nearby. It was mostly empty, just rust, mildew, and the ghosts of forgotten journeys. Dust motes danced in the weak light filtering through the fog-caked windows. There's nothing here. The crimson glow from the laptop screen pulsed in time with that horrifying whispering sound, filling the cramped interior of the abandoned car with a nightmarish light. It felt like we were trapped inside the belly of some monstrous beast. The whisper wasn't just a sound. It was a physical sensation, vibrating in my teeth, in my bones, making my skin crawl. It promised unspeakable things, ancient and ravenous. Panic, raw and undiluted, clawed its way up my throat. "We have to go," I yelled, fumbling for the door handle. "Now!" But the handle wouldn't budge. It was stuck, rusted shut from the outside perhaps, or held. Dave was frantically trying his door too, with the same result. We were trapped in this derelict coffin on wheels with that thing, whatever it was, just outside, hidden by the swirling gray curtain of fog. The soft footsteps started again, closer this time, circling the car. The moment the window shattered, the fog outside seemed to react. It billowed, surged, and then a tendril of it, thicker and darker than the rest, snaked in through the broken opening. It wasn't just mist, it felt tangible, coiling like a greasy gray serpent. It carried with it an unearthly chill and a smell that was indescribably foul, decay, damp earth, and something else, something metallic and sickly sweet. "What is it? What's it showing?" I yelled, trying to push through the disorienting, freezing fog towards Dave. The cold blue light from the laptop pulsed erratically, casting strange, dancing shadows within the gray miasma. Dave was shaking his head, his eyes wide with a new, dawning horror. It's not on the screen," he stammered, his voice cracking. It's burning the case. It's burning words into the case." He angled the laptop, and even through the gloom I could see it. "Welcome home." The words burned on the laptop casing, a cold, blue fire that seared itself into my soul. The whispers surged, a triumphant, deafening chorus now swirling around us in the choking fog. "Welcome home. Welcome home. You are ours. You remembered. There was no fighting this. No escape. We were the key, and the lock had just turned." The fog inside the car became almost solid, pressing in, cold and suffocating. I don't remember screaming, but I must have. My throat was raw. Dave was making a choked, whimpering sound beside me. The figures on the bone road moved with a slow, inevitable gait, their glowing blue eyes fixed on us, burning through the fog. There was nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. The car was our tomb, and they were the pallbearers. The whispers had stopped, replaced by a heavy, expectant silence, broken only by the soft, crunching sound of their approach on that unholy road.